One of the most common things I hear whenever the new iPhones come out is how each new generation makes better and better cases for Apple's smartphones as a content creator's camera. You can see that for a lot of smartphones probably, but I do tend to agree when it comes to the Pro models of the iPhones because of certain factors. But today we're focusing on the entry-level iPhone, the one that I think a lot of people will gravitate towards simply because it is cheaper and overall a little bit simpler. After all, not everybody needs to be or is a Pro. So let's have some fun with the iPhone 16 on a trip up to Seattle, and then a bit of bonus with some accessories that might bridge the gap between it and the Pro variants. Hey, it's Josh Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Come hang out with me in this real-world camera test with the iPhone 16. Now, considering we're working with a base model iPhone, I'm going to be taking this camera test a little bit less intensely. Sure, there are some Pro-like features that are available in the phone, but when it comes to the iPhone 16, I think it's best to look at this as a camera I happen to have in my pocket rather than my main content creation camera. That being said, there are some ways in which the iPhone 16 can still be a great content creator's tool, and for a number of people out there, this might be the main camera that you have in general. So I will touch upon some of those aspects later in the video, especially when some accessories come into play. Speaking of which, I do have a sponsor for this video, and it is TORRAS, who makes some great accessories for every version of this year's iPhone lineup. More on these in a little bit. Now, I know I'm the tea guy, but you gotta appreciate at least the higher end version of Starbucks. And what better place to check out a Starbucks Reserve than the birthplace of Starbucks here in Seattle, Washington. Now, before we go too far into the weeds with the cameras, let's talk about the general phone experience. As the smallest of the bunch, the iPhone 16 might be the most appealing one to those who prefer easy and accessible smartphone handling. As you can see, I have this in the ultramarine colorway, which did look a little bit purple to me in the renders, and it still kind of does even right now, but it's definitely way more blue than I originally thought. It makes sense with the name once I actually thought about it. This 6.1-inch Super Retina OLED display still has Apple's main tropes included, like the dynamic island up here and the ceramic shield glass for a little bit of protection. Now, I know some of you are already going to get into the comments to talk about the refresh rate, and I am kind of right there with you. I'm one of those people that can see the difference between 60Hz refresh rates and practically anything faster than that. That being said, I do think that 60 is probably perfectly fine for a ton of people that are not, let's say, you or me. Someone that doesn't follow tech YouTube and who is just walking into a phone carrier store looking to upgrade their smartphone. But a faster refresh rate is usually called Pro Motion, and obviously that's made for the Pro variants. Would it have been better to have something at least like 90 Hz just for a little bit of extra smoothness? Absolutely. But 60 is the bare minimum, and we are talking about a base model phone here, so I still think it makes a little bit of sense. Let's just say I'll give Apple the room to surprise me one year when they finally decide to make a change. Even if you don't go Pro, you're still seeing the right everyday software experience going in and out of apps, playing games like Resident Evil 4 or Assassin's Creed, or you're seeing me play Balatro, which finally came out in the App Store, and of course enjoying all kinds of media, even if you go for the smaller phone compared to the iPhone 16 Plus. For now, the main addition that the iPhone 16 enjoys does have to do with the camera, and it's this new button right here on the side. Camera control, they call it. Just press it, and then you can open up the controls, not just for the main camera app, but for even more than that. You can actually launch right into the Instagram camera layer so that you can capture in post with the quickness. As I talked about in my iPhone 16 Pro Week 1 video, I do find this to be a net positive. I think it should be lower on the body so that the button can actually be reached comfortably when you're actually using it like a camera in landscape mode, but even the lighter presses and the swiping to adjust things here, it could just throw your composition off just that tiny bit if you already got it before you press that button. The micro adjustments that are going into having this button on the side, those are just going to be really common and something you have to consider. I do think it's good that the camera functions are moved over to a new button so that the action button can do something else, which opens up a little more usability overall for these base models. Oh, and speaking of, the action button is now a thing in the base models. Yay. I keep my camera control to adjusting the exposure slider, which I usually dial into around -1, maybe -0.7, and then I immediately get snapping. That camera control is something that accessories and case manufacturers have to keep in mind now, and that's exactly what TORRAS did when making their cases for the iPhone 16 lineup. A big thanks to TORRAS for sponsoring this video and for hooking me up with a couple of their Ostand 360 spin cases and the thinnest MagSafe power bank I've ever seen. The Ostand 360 spin cases that you're seeing right now are for the iPhone 16 Pro, but they are also available for the rest of the iPhone 16 lineup. The Ostand 360 spin actually stands for the ring that comes out of the back of the case, providing a multi-purpose kickstand. This is especially for the larger iPhones because it provides comfortable viewing angles in either landscape or portrait orientations for when you're watching stuff like YouTube videos, but it's also a bit of a grip ring when you find a comfortable position to anchor the kickstand around or with your fingers. And yes, this does include when capturing photos and videos. The case comes in multiple colors, looks great, and still provides plenty of protection for the phone. The 360-degree spinning Ostand ring right there still provides MagSafe support, so other accessories will connect to the phone easily, like TORRAS' own MiniMag power bank. Take a look at this. This is the slimmest MagSafe power bank that I think I've ever seen, and it still packs 5,000 mAh to top up the phone whenever you find yourself a little bit low on battery. It manages to slip into any pocket, whether it's in my jeans or in my daily carry bag, even when it's still connected to the phone, and this light weight doesn't add further bulk so that the handling of my phones is still quite breezy. There is still a USB-C port on the side to charge up anything else that you might need, like an Apple Watch or AirPods for example. And for that reason, the MiniMag is one of the easiest accessories to bring along with me anywhere, and it pairs really well with the Ostand case that has plenty of practicality to add to daily iPhone use. To try out everything that TORRAS has to offer for the latest iPhones, you can check out the links that I have put in the description and in the pinned comment below. These are a great example of the kind of support Apple gets from accessories makers, and TORRAS has definitely made some good ones here. Thanks once again to TORRAS for outfitting my iPhones with their latest accessories and for sponsoring this video. Alright, I went to visit my best friend up in Seattle and bring my girlfriend for her first visit to the Pacific Northwest, so it made sense as a scenario for using the iPhone 16 as a way to capture those memories. For most people, the camera they have on their smartphones will be doing a lot of heavy lifting, and even if the iPhone 16 won't be doing a ton of zooming because of the sensors and the lenses that it was provided, it could still be the best camera that many will have on hand. The base model iPhone 16 once again gets a 48 megapixel main sensor with plenty of capabilities like a wide aperture for good shallow depth of field, OIS, and good autofocus. The megapixel count on the ultra-wide, on the other hand, drops down to 12, which makes it pretty clear that the main sensor is what I'll want to use for the best looking results. The front-facing camera is also a 12 megapixel shooter, which will still provide some good-looking self-portraits and 4K video recording. We got some real home-style Filipino cooking right here at Pike Place Market. It would be Omart, Oriental Food Mart, I should say. Great place. Thank you, ate. Awesome longanisa. But this is exactly why I still appreciate having the camera control button, because it just makes taking rear camera selfies and video a little bit easier.
Being able to turn the phone around and just be able to get a nice shot like this. Farmers Market, Pike Place.
Now, right off the bat, pictures and videos are looking fine. I think at this point we're at a place where the hardware that we put into typical smartphones will give us good looking, detailed, and pleasing results in good lighting without being exceptional or even particularly offensive. There are a bunch of phones coming out of Asia that you might see getting pitted against the various iPhones that pump out incredible results, but their camera hardware is so different and those bumps are way larger as a result. That's why I thought of taking this rear-world camera test a little more casually, because what we're working with here is more or less made for the general user. The same goes for the feature set, as the Pro models are the ones that are able to do Pro RAW and capture video in Apple log format natively, or do 4K 120 frame per second video. No, instead we're taking pictures of ourselves and our friends and the gorgeous vistas of the Pacific Northwest simply to remember this nice time together with friends for a weekend. The ultra wide angle camera is useful for tighter spaces when you want to fit more into a frame, but also it's now capable of autofocus, which opens up proper macro shooting in this base model iPhone. That is a plus if you do want to get a little extra creative. Flash forward a little bit, while all of the things that we did out in Seattle were awesome and obviously quite photogenic, I did want to just wait a little bit to come back to one of my favorite places to do these rear-world camera tests, the Huntington Gardens here in just outside of Pasadena, California. Okay, exploring more of the various features that are available in the camera software. Obviously, you're still going to be using the iPhone camera interface that we've had for quite some time now. There are some new controls. After all, we have things like the photographic styles. We have a little bit more manual control over certain aspects of the photo and video taking process. And then you have other features like this, the cinematic video, which gives a bit of a blur to the background and tends to give that sort of cinematic feel, that shallow depth of field. That being said, you can see it already here on my glasses that it is making sure that I am clear, which also includes what you might be able to see or not see through my actual glasses. So this is a little bit clear when really it shouldn't be. That's fine though, it's just the way that software works. And of course the cinematic video is also available on the rear cameras, which is going to be nice if you want to get some nice looking videos of somebody else, maybe post it on social media or even have it as part of a straight up production. Indeed, the expected quality of the photos and videos on the iPhone 16 will rely a bit more on software to make things look and feel different. That is when the photographic styles come into play. The iPhone 16 gets just as much control over these as the Pro models, with adjustments to the actual color shifts and the intensity of the styles. And scrolling through them to get different looks is actually quite fun because you can get a different photo each time you switch to something else. The result can be like a warmer tone in a photo that suits the fall season colors of Seattle's surrounding nature, or a stark black and white photo to make a scene look more dramatic. All of these styles can be applied in post via the Photos app though, so in a way you can treat them a little bit like filters after the fact. That being said, having access to the photographic styles in real time does make you feel a little bit more in control than the base model would have you suspect at first. Speaking of control, you can get a little bit more out of the main sensor here on the rear cameras thanks to accessories that came in right after I returned from that trip. Now, you'll hear me say it a few times in these upcoming POV shots, but Moment is not the sponsor of this video. I'm mainly showing off these accessories as a way of illustrating just how much support the iPhone ecosystem gets in terms of expanding the experience. And they do this right, because the main lens is where attaching different additional focal lengths will likely get you better results, like with the zoom lens so that you can actually get a little more reach, or with the wide angle so you can get better resolution ultra-wide shots compared to the ones using the lens included on the phone. Once again, Moment is not the sponsor in this video, it is TORRAS, but I just wanted to highlight this because on the iPhone 16s you do have a ton of different accessories that are available, and it's one of the more enviable reasons why you might want to check out the Apple ecosystems. They are supported by so many different companies that enhance the experience no matter which iPhone you end up getting in the lineup. Actually, there's a squirrel right there. Let's see if we can get a nice looking photo without disturbing the little guy. He's actually letting me get a little bit closer. Or if macro photography is really your jam, the 75mm macro provides even more depth of field and separation from the subject when you're getting intensely close up. In all honesty, I appreciate the versatility of the iPhone 16 because it isn't trying so hard on its own to be the everything camera. It's up to me to take the features to the next level via Apple's own software additions, of which there certainly aren't as many compared to the Pros. And if I really wanted to get sweaty with it without getting a whole different, more expensive Pro smartphone, accessories open up the possibilities both in and out of the cameras. Don't mind if I do. Oh yeah. My time with the iPhone 16 during that trip and then coming home brought me a familiar feeling with most, let's call them conventional smartphones. The main sensor is the way to go when you want the best quality results, but also the most versatility given the accessories. Everything else is there for support and won't be often used until you really need it for the situation you might find yourself in. It's for that reason I will say that the iPhone 16 manages to just add enough to the core photography and videography experiences that you might already know and love already, but it's up to a new button and some extra accessories to make this an upgrade that is worthy enough for you. Let me know what you think of the photos and videos that came out of the iPhone 16 during this test, and if you think that the iPhone 16 is doing enough for you to consider an upgrade. If you're like my friends up in Seattle using an iPhone model that ends with a single digit, well obviously this upgrade might make total sense, but if you're even just 2 generations behind, I'd like to know what your plans are in the comments down below. With all that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today. Thanks again to TORRAS for sponsoring this video. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.